Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Joel Cuello, Professor of Biosystems Engineering at the University of Arizona. And this morning, I'm joined here by Nate Storey, Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Plenty Unlimited Inc., which is based in South San Francisco, California. But Nate is joining us today from Laramie, Wyoming. Welcome, Nate, and thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So Nate, everybody knows that Plenty is one of the industry-leading vertical farming companies, not just in the U.S., but in the world. But tell us in your own words, what distinguishes or separates Plenty from most vertical farming companies?
Yeah, I think, there are a few unique things about Plenty, but maybe the most, unique feature is we're kind of the only skilled vertical farming company in the space that uses vertical plane production. So it's a unique architecture. It's a unique kind of physical approach to space management and managing plants in space. And, it's kind of the driver of a lot of our efficiencies and a driver of a lot of our yield opportunities.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Yes. So as you know, one of the biggest news in the vertical farming sector, or even in the green tech sector, early this year is the news that Plenty has just gone through its Series E funding round, and it raised something to the tune of over $400 million US. And the most significant thing is that part of that investment includes investment from Walmart. And when people in the industry heard about this, they didn't really know how to process it. Some of them were skeptical, some are thinking that this is hype. And again, in part because they don't have a significant appreciation business-wise of what Walmart represents. So just for our audience, Walmart, of course, is the largest company in the world by revenue. Last year, it earned over 500 billion US. It employs over 2.3 million employees worldwide, and in the US alone, it's over 1.6 million. It has about 11,500 stores worldwide, and a little over 50% of that are located here in the United States. And here's the real power of Walmart. It attracts on a weekly basis over 265 million customers to its stores worldwide. And because of that, and because of the mission of Walmart to serve its customers, to save money and to live better, that's their motto and slogan, they are working very closely with all of their partner suppliers to be able to sell the products, the produce of the suppliers at Walmart stores at the price point that Walmart determines to be fair and appropriate for its customers. So with that context, when it was announced that Walmart is investing with Plenty, and that Walmart even will have a seat on the board of directors of Plenty, this is something that is significant. But before we break that down, can you react a little bit on that statement that I just gave?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's right. Walmart is a huge company, but I think, most folks have experienced Walmart in the context of, I go to Walmart, I buy my groceries, I buy, my motor oil and my, shoes and all of these things in the same place, right? It's kind of this miraculous experience where you can walk into a store and buy whatever you want to do, or whatever you want to buy. But, it's really interesting working with a little bit more closely with the Walmart folks. I've never met folks at a big company that believed in their mission as much as the Walmart people do. Right. So it's pretty amazing. They care deeply about their mission and they're 100% dedicated to it. So, as we think about Walmart, it's not just a monolithic retailer. It is a pretty innovative company. Like, they're doing a lot of very interesting things. They're looking to the future and they're asking, how do we make the future better for our customers, for our business, and how can we de-risk some of the things that we see happening in the world? Obviously coming out of the last couple of years, with COVID, we've had these massive supply chain disruptions. We're still seeing massive supply chain disruptions around the world. Supply chain is something that all the retailers care about. And the supply chain for fresh fruits and vegetables is one of those supply chains that's under threat, right?
Right.
So, we've kind of got like these temporary things. Ships aren't sailing, things are stuck in ports. We also have, climate change. We have a lot of other kind of pressures on the field.
Right.
And I think almost all of the grocers at this point are looking for alternatives to an unprotected field to try and understand how do we make sure that we keep fresh food, high quality fresh food on the shelf for the next 20 years, 30 years, 50 years.
Correct.
So
I'd like to add that Walmart is also a very data-driven company. And it's one of the first companies, and I think it's the first in retail to use the barcode so that it can really monitor its inventory and its sales, and it can do all of these fancy data analytics. But anyhow, let's break this down. So first, in terms of technology, it is well known that Plenty is a vertical farming company that owns a sizable patent portfolio on technologies. Could you give us an idea, to the extent possible, in terms of what technology areas of vertical farming are being addressed by your patented technologies?
Yeah, I mean, so on the patent side, Plenty has been. Actually, let me back up. Let me frame it this way. Most other players in the space have taken the role of systems integrators, right? Where they buy existing pieces of technology and they stitch them together to build a vertical farm.
Right.
Plenty has taken a fundamentally different approach, which is the invent, create, build, engineer, manufacture approach. This is a really hard approach, a really expensive approach, but we did it because we had conviction, from a first principles perspective, that focusing on architectures that are, physically superior will give us the long-term advantage. And so we made the investment. So when you say, we've got a sizable IP portfolio, it is larger than the entire rest of the industry combined. You take all of the patents generated in indoor ag, you combine them all, our portfolio is bigger than all of them combined. So that is a reflection of our approach to the problem.
Right.
Not necessarily like we're not big on IP. I think we've invested meaningfully in IP for those things that we think are really important. And I think that now it's becoming pretty clear that it gives us a meaningful advantage as we look to the future. Right. But it's really a reflection of our approach.
I'd like to ask you, are you working with AI, robotics, automation in your technology suites for your vertical farms?
All of the above. Yep, that's right. So our farms are highly automated. Okay. In comparison to, I think, other folks in the industry today, an example would be, our Compton farm, once it is producing, this year, that will be a 2 million to 3 million kilogram per year farm, depending on how we choose to run it. As high as 4, but unlikely that we'll run it in the 4s. We're staffing, that's in 100,000 square feet. We'll staff it with, around 60 folks.
Okay.
So, this is the only way you can produce, 2 million kilograms of baby greens, packed 3 million kilograms of product, packed, ship it, run that type of a farm is if you have a lot of automation. And if, the only way you do it is if you're delegating more responsibilities to your computers and fewer responsibilities to your humans. There's just not enough humans to go around, right? So, these types of facilities are very heavily automated. We view humans, we view that automation as like the new tractor. So, back before tractors came along, you take a farm, 60% of the farm land mass was dedicated to forage and feed for the livestock, for pulling the plows on the fields. The other 40% of the farm, it was actually used to grow the stuff you could sell, right? So the tractor comes along, and all of a sudden, all of these draft animals are obsolete. You can put the entire farm. Folks could more than double their output of their farm like that by adopting the tractor. So, we view this as kind of like the next evolution in humans and in ag, where instead of tractors, now we have these operators that are, monitoring and maintaining the robots, the equipment, and making sure the farm runs well.
Right. And Nate, in the entire corporate landscape in the US and globally, Walmart is known as a leader in fostering environmental sustainability. And it's not a matter of greenwashing. They're really serious about this. They're addressing everything
Yeah.
in the supply chain, in the source or procurement, and of course in the stores as well as with the consumers. Now with vertical farming, of course, it offers a lot of sustainability benefits in terms of water savings, in terms of land. But one sticking point for vertical farming that the industry is still working on is on the matter of energy consumption. So how is Plenty, to the extent that you can talk about it, how is Plenty addressing that?
Yeah, I mean, Plenty is addressing it by, we do our best to go out and source green power wherever we're at. So, I mean, the way to think about this problem, I think, is to say, listen, the grid is greening at a rate that is unbelievable, unprecedented, unexpected. And there are a lot of industries that are not necessarily reacting to that in a way that means that, 10 years from now, we can transition from other types of energy to the green energy that the grid can provide. And so we view ourselves as kind of like one of the businesses that says, hey, listen, the consumption of green energy is not necessarily a bad thing, right? We want to get away from carbon. We want low carbon or no carbon power sources down the road. Yeah. And the easiest and the best way to purchase those is through the grid, is through sustainable power generation, electricity specifically, that is going onto the grid, and we buy that power up. So that's been our approach. And I think, in the future, there's all sorts of really interesting opportunities for large power consumers like ourselves to, start going directly to the source and to start, sourcing green energy directly. And I'm personally pretty excited about that.
Okay.
So,
yeah. And as you know, Walmart as a company is aiming to be a net zero emission global company by 2040. So you're feeling confident that as a partner to Walmart, as a vertical farming company, that you will be able to contribute as well significantly to achieving that aim.
Yep.
Wonderful.
I'm very confident.
Okay, so one really promising thing that I see about the partnership between Plenty and Walmart is that, and this is a statement coming directly from Walmart, is that Walmart really wishes and intends to collaborate closely with Plenty to create a new and a market-leading category for vertical farming produce. So in other words, we're not talking about organic, we're not talking about non-organic. This is a brand new category of produce from vertical farming. And it's characterized as being fresh, pesticide-free, pig flavor, and available year-round, every day of the year. So that's really quite powerful. And I think this is great for the industry. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think, most of our retail partners, Walmart included, shares our vision that, consumers don't necessarily want organic. They want the things that they think organic represents. It's similar for other categories of product, right? People are buying the benefit. And so for us, we look at what we do, we look at our product and we say, this is better than anything else on the shelf, better shelf life, better flavor, it's clean, it's fresh, there are no pesticides. And for me personally, the pesticides thing is a big deal. I want to limit my children's exposure to pesticides. So, this is produce you can have faith in. Yeah. This is produce you can trust. And this is produce with a name attached to it and accountability attached to it. And so I think as a consumer, when we think about how categories emerge, right, they tend to emerge when some new benefit can be offered through a product that is so meaningfully different than the stuff before it that it has to have a name, right? It has to be called something, and people have to know how they can buy that thing. And so I think, there are a tremendous amount of advantages to growing indoors. I think our retail partners are starting to see this, yes. And I hope the rest of the world can see it too.
Right, right. So I want to ask you this, Nate, and I want you to remove your hat now as a chief science officer for Plenty, but put on the hat of being a stakeholder of the industry of vertical farming. And as you know, I mean, great for Plenty because you're very much well on your way because you're well funded and you've got the technology, expertise, everything. But there's quite a number of aspiring startups out there, not just in the US, but globally, and they are, earnest and sincere about, starting up an enterprise that's not only profitable, but it's good for the environment, good for society. What kind of advice would you give to them, knowing what you know now with all of your
Yeah.
experiences?
I mean, I think, there are a few words of warning, maybe words of encouragement, maybe words of warning for the industry. One, is start with an architecture that isn't a dead end. Like understand where you want to go with the architecture, the physics of your system, and understand what the limitations are, or do your best to understand what the limitations are.
Okay, but what do you mean by a dead end architecture?
Meaning that many producers today have selected an architecture that has serious limitations, either by crop or by your ability to manage that architecture, or automate that architecture, or whatever. There are some very simplistic, very fundamentalist, very first principles, however you want to describe it, ways of doing the analysis to understand, if we know the following things matter to plants, right? Airflow, gas management, humidity control, light intensity. Are you going to go with a high intensity or low intensity system? Are you going to be highly automated, low automation, across this spectrum of opportunities, what is the path that you should choose? And most people just kind of stumble their way into the architecture they select. And it ultimately means they build a business around something that just can't scale, right? So this is a major risk, and it's something that we don't talk about. We have tended to take this anything that grows a plant will work kind of approach. And the industry has evolved. It's getting more sophisticated. It will be more and more competitive in the future. So unless you have a real competitive advantage, you're going to struggle. The other thing that I would say is this is and always will be a capital intensive industry. It's not like software where you can write this thing and then, you spend all of your money on customer support and you can kind of endlessly scale this code. This is, I know there's software people out there that are cringing right now. Obviously that's way overly simplistic, but you get the idea, right? There are things that are relatively easy to scale, products that are easy to scale, and there are products that are very hard to scale. And physical infrastructure is pretty darn hard to scale. Right. And so, I think there are a lot of folks that think that they can go build giant farms for $10 million, $20 million. And the answer to that is not a farm that produces. And so, I think that's something to note, or just kind of keep on folks' minds. And the last thing that I'd say is, this industry is riddled with bad information, and it's riddled with bad metrics. So, things like, there's a lot of ways to kind of hide the fundamentals, right? Things like, what is your energy use per kilogram of production? What is your cost per kilogram of production? How many grams per square meter per day can you produce of growing plane, right? And what is the density, square meters of growing plane per square meter of floor plan? These are the types of things that allow people to actually dissect the productivity or the opportunity of your business. And for a very long time, most folks, us included, have been somewhat reticent to share a lot of that fundamental data, but we're approaching the point where all of that data needs to be shared, right? And investors are going to demand it, because at the end of the day, there are probably a lot of pretty risky investments that are being made simply because the metrics are confusing or bad, or we're not being as open as an industry as we should be.
Okay.
So
All right. So, Nate, I'd like to end by asking you this question. Plenty is now what? It started in 2014, so it's about 8 years old now. And again, having been in this sector industry for longer than that, what is your projection of the industry? Are you feeling optimistic about it? And if you are, why?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, I mean, I'm optimistic about this industry. I think it's going to represent a healthy portion of global ag, initially for high value horticultural crops, like over the next 10 to 15 years. And as we move from like the 15 to 25 or 30-year span, I think ultimately we're going to see this industry growing almost anything that can and is grown in the field. And I think there are a number of reasons for that. You look at geopolitical instability right now and how wheat supplies globally are threatened. And, we've been so used to living in a safe world that is predictable and stable for a very long time. Considering instability is a pretty scary thought. Humanity hasn't had to live with that type of instability and disruption for a while. And certainly not in a world or in a system that's as stressed as it is right now, or as stressed as it will be in 10 years. And so as human beings, thinking about the system that we live in, the ecology that we live in, the niche that we occupy, this is a tool that allows us to expand the size of the planet, right? So we are indoor farmers, are land manufacturers. We are building ideal farmland where it matters. And it's currently kind of one of the only ways to manufacture land for an industry that also happens to be the world's largest land consumer, right, if you will. So global ag, it dominates the face of our planet. It will dominate the face of our planet forever, most likely. And how do you expand when you've already pretty much consumed most of the land mass on planet Earth? Well, the answer is you have to figure out ways to condense it and manufacture more of it. And that's really what we're doing. So I would guess, 50 years from now, there will be very few foods around the world that, at least in part, aren't coming from a vertical farm.
All right. Okay. So Nate Storey, thank you so much. And of course, your success, Planta's success will be the success of the industry. So we certainly send you the best of success in your endeavors going forward.
Cool.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Nate. Yes.